It's Juan Weezar with another Own More Doors podcast. I'm super excited to be coming to you here in February, and I'm really excited. I brought one of the agents here at our office, one of our multifamily specialists, and Tay, to join us today. We're going to be talking about the duplex triplex market here in Long Beach, trends, financing, what's happening. We're going to follow her journey. She's owned properties throughout the years. That's in fact how I know her, but she's also buying her first duplex. And so we're going to get into that as well. So, Ann, thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Juan. Happy to be here.
Awesome. So let's just get into it. Okay. Ann, someone comes to you and says, how's the market? And you might say, oh, well, let's talk about, listen. And I always tell people, when people talk about how's the market, there's so many different things, right? There's self-storage, there's office, there's medical office, there's industrial. Today, we're going to be talking about the duplex triplex market. So, Ann, someone comes to you and says, I want to buy a small income property. How's the market? What's your response?
Well, I would tell them, we're in February now. So it's great that we can gather data from the previous year in 2024 and go off from there. And so what the trends have looked out prior to that as well. So starting with 2024, we sold in Long Beach, 114 duplexes.
So, okay. Yeah. So in 2024, you said 114?
114, yes.
So let me give this perspective. So in 2024, there was like maybe 43 fourplexes that sold. So I'm saying that there's a lot more duplexes that traded in Long Beach. But just so you know, for anyone listening, we in Long Beach have a lot of fourplexes. We have way more duplexes. And how many duplexes do we have in Long Beach?
We have 7,373 duplexes.
Wow. Okay. And just so that anyone, just for perspective, there's 2,600 fourplexes. Okay. So there's a lot more duplexes out there. And so in 2024, we had 114 sales. What did we have the year before?
We had 101 sold the year before.
Okay. So then market trend would be up, which is good. And why would you think that is, Ann? Like why in 2024 will there be more sales than in the prior year?
I think people are now looking into having some versatility into their properties, and so we're finding that not only looking at single family homes, but opening up their options for duplexes because you have yet another unit that you can utilize. And I think the other piece too is that there's more awareness that duplexes do exist and they are affordable. So I think people just know more that there are more options out there.
Could it be that maybe, and I guess this is where I want to get into next, could it be that maybe in 2024 we had a price dip in the duplex and maybe that's what drove it up?
Actually, we had a price increase
so
in 2024. So let's start back to 2022.
Okay.
And so as we know, back in 2022 is when there was a market frenzy, not only in the single family housing market, but also in the multifamily market. And the reason for that is because we had relatively low interest rates at that time. And we know that back in the pandemic times, we had historically low interest rates in like the 2 and 3%. And it started to rise, and it started to rise more in 2022 to 5%. So people started to want to join the ownership of property, taking advantage of the lower percentage without it going much higher. Mm-hmm. And so 2022 was when duplexes were selling a lot higher. The average price in 2022 was $1,160,000. And then there took a dip in 2023 because interest rates started to rise. And so the average price in 2023 is 1.044. Mm-hmm. And coming into 2024, prices are starting to rise again. And so we're at very, very similar 1.064 average.
Okay. So a slight increase from the year before. Sales are up, prices are slightly up. And when someone looks at a duplex, are they thinking living in one, renting the other? Are they thinking investment? And are they even factoring in metrics that we use with other property, gross rent multiplier, cap rate, like are they factoring that stuff in or not as much?
In the duplex market, not as much. Oftentimes, it's used as an owner occupied unit. Of course, you can still buy it as an investment property, but those who may want to offset their mortgage and yet live in another, that would be a good option for duplexes. And so we don't usually look at cap rates or gross rent multiplier.
I would say that most people, it can be factored in, but primarily that's probably not the reason why they're buying it. Where especially with a duplex and for anyone listening, when we're saying duplex, this could be 2 homes on a lot, 2 properties. I mean, it could even be a single family home with an ADU. The fact that they're calling it an accessory dwelling unit, to me, it's still a structure, an independent structure on its own. It's going to rent out, so it's not, like we're going to lump all those into one. When we list properties, one of the most important things that people ask is, how long is it going to take to sell my property? So, on average, what did you find out through the years with duplexes?
So we'll look at days per on market, and just in 2024, the average days on market is 45 days.
Okay.
And in 2023, it was actually 60 days. So we can see that properties are moving faster off the market. There's more demand despite the higher prices.
Yeah, so there's more sales, they're moving faster, and the prices are up. So, like, if someone were to say, "How's the duplex market?" I would say those 3 things, which is very promising for an owner or a potential seller.
And one thing I want to add too is oftentimes people may think duplexes are more expensive than single family homes. And what I found was that 25% sold in 2024, which is 29 properties, were sold between the price of $700,000 and $800,000. And I think that would be a pretty reasonable price for not only an investment property, but also owner occupied.
I mean, at that price range, I would think that might be the median home price.
Right.
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 And what you're saying is that it's on the low end, you could get a duplex in the 7s and 8s.
That's what is majority sold. On the low end, you can actually get duplex in the 600s.
Okay, so you've seen one go that low.
Yes.
One of the other benefits of a duplex property is that it legitimately qualifies for the FHA loan without meeting the self-sufficiency test.
Right.
So a lot of times people will contact us and they want to go down the FHA route. And then we have to tell them, well, how many units are you trying to buy? And sometimes we'll have to divert them over to Fannie Mae type loans because there's a thing called the self-sufficiency test. That applies to 3 and 4 unit buildings, but we remind them, hey, we know you want 3 or 4, but you have to meet this test. In the duplex world, you don't have to meet the test, which I think is
right. You can take advantage of the low down payments that FHA allows for, which is 3.5%, and which is the lowest you can go, and still finance your property off of the FHA loan without having to meet the self-sufficiency test. And for those who may not know what the self-sufficiency test is, it does have to apply to triplexes and quads, like you mentioned. So what they do is that there is an appraiser that is FHA approved, and the FHA appraiser comes into our property. And they're going to look at what is the market rent for each of the units.
So not exactly what is it, what's the rent roll or what it's collecting today. It's what it could collect, right?
What it could collect, the potential rent for each unit.
Right.
And they're going to add up the rent for the whole property, and they're going to give you 75% of that amount. And that 75% has to cover what we would say are the PTI of the property.
Yeah, the PITI. Yeah.
PITI. So the mortgage, taxes, and insurance. And if you have mortgage insurance, if you're putting a low down payment, you'll have it. If you put a down payment below 20%, you'll have mortgage insurance too. So that 75% of your rent that you could collect needs to cover these expenses.
Right. And so what we're saying is at the duplex level for anyone who's getting started, minimal down payment, FHA available, and you don't have to meet the self-sufficiency test, but we'll worry about this for you. I mean, we're just, giving you advice now, but if you were to reach out to Ann, she would know this. And so we're not asking you guys to memorize it, but just it's important to kind of note that the barrier to entry for the duplex is much lower when it comes to FHA financing. If you're working with a buyer right now, how many the duplex properties are there on the market in Long Beach?
There are 38 duplexes on the market right now in Long Beach.
How many triplexes are there on the market?
There are 26.
Okay. Speaking of triplex, let's switch off to there. Let us know pricing, sales, days on market, and we'll kind of compare and contrast how they've been doing through the years, and then also see if it's more beneficial for someone to pursue them over a duplex.
Sure. So triplex market, there's a lot less inventory. There's 2,077 triplexes in Long Beach.
Okay.
And in 2024, 36 sold. So very different than your duplex market. The average sale price is similar. It's $1,143,000. And the average days on market is 45 days.
Okay. It's really similar to the fourplex market. The fourplex has 2,600 fourplexes, and then the average sales price is around 1.3 million. So, I mean, I know triplex are less, but which I would expect them to be less, but and then the amount of sales it's actually really similar to how the fourplex market is performing. Interesting.
Right. And the entry point is similar to a duplex as well. And so we have seen triplexes sold in the 700s, and the majority of them are selling actually between $800,000 to $900,000. 30% in 2024 was sold in that range.
Let me do a shameless plug right now. We have 2485 Pasadena on the market for $799,000. That's the 3 units, and we also have one. I think it's 1478 Linden, and it's a new listing. We're asking $895,000. So we're within the range of where they typically trade.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
How are prices up and are sales up in the triplex as well, like they are with the duplex?
Prices are steadily trending down, actually. So
in the triplex
market, yes. So in 2023, there's a slight trend down. The average was 1.164, and in 2022 hit its highest at 1.28. And so we're having a slight decrease in the triplex market.
In terms of sales, you're saying?
In terms of
sales
price.
Right.
Exactly.
And then overall sales?
Overall sales have actually increased. So 25 sold in 2022, 27 in 2023, and then 36 in the last year, 2024.
Yeah. And I'm wondering, I would think in this case that maybe the price dip maybe got people off the market. And I think to your point, to what you said earlier, oftentimes we'll look at your single family home in Long Beach, let's just say it's $850,000. But you just finished telling me that most triplexes sell in the 8s and 9s.
Right.
And so for a lot of people, I'm just curious if there's a lot of people who, I get it, at first your goal is single family home, but you're thinking for the same price of a single family home, I could get 2 additional units to help offset the mortgage. I'm wondering if that's some of the drive or push. It's just that our cost of living is high.
Right. And so I agree. I think that it is a smart move to purchase a duplex and a triplex and be owner occupied for one of them. So you could take advantage of the financing behind owner occupied loans, but also have the rents offset part of your mortgage. And so that helps with not only having more money in your pocket, but also you could sit on the appreciation of the property as well, just like you would for single family homes. And I think that would be helpful for those who may not want a forever home, may not want to live forever in the duplex or triplex and eventually buy their dream home in the future. They can always leverage their investment property and do so.
No, you're right. I mean, no one moves into their dream home right off the bat. And sometimes we need baby steps, And when I first got started, and listen, similar to you, I mean, I know your story as well, is I went through a lot of condominiums before I ever landed my first house. And I know that you could,
Right.
say the same.
Yes.
Okay. Hey, so let's move on to interest rates. Where are interest rates now that you're seeing? And let's also talk about your purchase that you're going through now.
Sure. So interest rates right now are really falling between 6.9 and 7%. That's for owner occupied
Mm-hmm.
properties. We're looking more at 7.5% for an investment loan. And so um, they're setting out, I don't think that there's going to be much changes in the coming months. And so for me, when I purchased I'm in escrow now. And
Good.
so we're going to close this week.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I'm super excited. And it is a 1963 built duplex that is an architectural work of art. It was designed by Clifton Jones Jr. Back in the 60s. And in that particular area, he designed quite a few duplexes in like what we call the Los Cerritos Circle in Bixby Knolls. And so we're closing this week and I'm excited to move in. There's a tenant in place, so that helps offset the mortgage already. We're moving in with the tenant in place. So that also helps me with qualifying for the loan altogether.
And is what the tenant is paying, when you said that you're moving in with a tenant in place, these are two separate dwellings. And so what she means is that
Right.
one of the dwellings is being occupied, but
Yes.
are what they're paying, were you okay with their current rent?
Their current rent is slightly under market. However, it could catch up by one rent increase, essentially. And so right now, the rent laws will allow for 8.9% of a rent increase. And so, it could just be one increase.
And did the owner also live there?
The owner did not live there.
All right. So let me just mention something that's kind of important. So kind of an interesting thing. The duplex that Anne is buying right now, because the owner did not live there, it made it subject to rent control laws. Now Anne is going to be moving in, which will then make it not subject to rent control laws, which is a benefit because it's a duplex that you live in is not subject to rent control. So that'll be an interesting thing. And a lot of the objections that you get working with a lot of buyers like you do, they're going to say, I don't want to buy right now because prices are high and interest rates are high. But Anne, you know what you're doing. You're a professional. You've owned, several properties before. You've bought, you've sold, you've invested. Why are you buying?
I'm buying for two reasons. Personal reasons always really come as priority, and so that's one of just wanting to have a multifamily home for myself as we're in that multifamily home market. And so that's one. The secondary reason is that, owning and selling, throughout the times I've had property, my property is always appreciated. And I've always had more cash on hand to then purchase a bigger and better unit in the future. And so I think, it really just depends on if you're able to buy now, because prices will only go up. And if you can't afford the interest rates at the moment, they're not that terrible. They can be affordable, particularly if you have rent offsetting part of your mortgage. It would be a good investment decision to go ahead and buy now.
And walk us through your process. How many offers did you put in before getting an accepted offer? Like, how competitive is that out there for people?
I started shopping for a duplex and triplex back in summer of 2024. So it took me about 6 months to identify like the one. I did put in two other offers in the past, and essentially I was just outbid. And so there is competition out there. People are looking, if it's priced right, if it's in a good location, it's going to move fast off the market. The two that I was going for were left the market within a week.
Yeah.
And this particular one has been sitting on the market for over 100 days. And I've always kept my eye on it because it was what I dreamt of moving into, actually. I just didn't realize that I can't afford it. So, with some negotiations with the selling agent, or the seller agent, excuse me, I was able to come in the price that I'm comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to close this week. So,
and you're buying this property. Are you nervous?
I am not nervous. I am excited. And so I'm not nervous because I've already worked out my finances to afford it.
Mm-hmm.
And the tenant in place, I've met him and he is a long-term tenant. And I'm happy to have him still continue for his tenancy there. And so, truly I'm excited to move in, start a new space in what I always admire, which is the mid-century modern style.
Awesome. The one thing that I like here, folks, is anyone who is working here with us at Sage Real Estate as a multifamily specialist is everyone is an investor first. And so, I like to tell people, I mean, listen, as cheesy as it sounds, like we don't just talk the talk, like we're walking the walk. I mean, if you're going to be working with Ann, and I hope you do, she's going through the process right now. It's February 2025, and she's buying now. She's getting an interest rate probably in the sevens. I'm sure she was able to maybe buy down that rate, but you're going to be guided by someone who is actually doing it, someone who has tenants, someone who's going through the process now, not 10 years ago or maybe never. And so, and tell us about the importance of, for someone who's looking into buying a multi-dwelling unit. Listen, I know a lot of realtors and they're going to say, oh, I could help you buy a duplex. I could help you buy a triplex. I could help you buy a fourplex. But traditionally they specialize in single family homes. I mean, are they the best fit, or like what kind of advice do you give someone who says, hey, I want to buy small income producing property? Like what agent should I go for? What should they be looking for, Ann?
If you're looking for a multifamily home, you really should be working with a multifamily agent. And for several reasons. One mainly is that we know what to look for in terms of analyzing a property. And we know the trends in the past years of how it would expect to appreciate and when should you have your return on investment, essentially. So all investments, you want to know what your end game looks like and your return. So that's one piece of, or one reason to work with the multifamily agent. Another is really how to deal with tenants. Mm-hmm. And so that's a whole other entity that is completely different than single family homes. You have a space to have tenants, and knowing the laws behind tenancy, knowing what to expect during escrow and what to ask for so that you are well aware of the actual history of the tenancy and what you're buying into. Because part of buying a multifamily home is not only the property itself, you also are buying the business and the income stream that comes with it. And so it's important to be able to analyze and be comfortable and be informed in the decision you're going to make when you buy a multifamily home, particularly when you're dealing with tenants in place.
And you'd be surprised how many times people call me and say, on my own listings, they'll ask the question, are those subject to rent control? These are realtors asking me if in Long Beach they're subject to rent control. I'm like, have you heard of statewide rent control? Did you not know about, Right. Which is just crazy. So not just because you're a licensed real estate agent doesn't mean you know state laws. And to your point, more now than ever, knowing how to deal with the tenants and the do's and don'ts are critically important, because a lot of realtors out there think that you could just give someone a 30-day notice and they have to move. And they're shocked when I tell them that that's not the way it works. They don't know about the substantial renovation. They don't know cash for keys. It's surprising how they might be really good at selling houses. I'm not taking that away from them, but they do not know how to deal with tenants. And that's why I think it's critically important that you're working with someone who specializes in this and you know, and this is why I'm having you here today, Ann, is just to kind of talk about what you're seeing with being boots on the ground at this level. One other thing too is sometimes I'll get buyers who contact me through the YouTube channel or our podcast channel, and they'll say, "Hey, I'm in Huntington Beach and I'm submitting offers with my agent, but he doesn't know cap rate or gross rent multipliers. And I saw your video," and I'm like, "Hey, that's your agent's job. And if they don't know how to do that, you're working with the wrong agent. If they can't help you, you chose the wrong person."
Right.
And I this happens so often where they're like, "Well, can you help me analyze that?" I'm like, "That's your agent's job. And if you wanted us to help, you should have signed on with us." And so let's talk about your background.
Oh, sure.
Tell us about
me.
what makes Ann unique.
So I originally started in the healthcare field, actually. And so I am a dietitian, still a dietitian today. And I've been in that field for 14 years now. And so my specialty was in kidney health. And I decided to go into real estate because I felt like I needed to be part of the community more than I was as a dietitian, although that has its own gratifications too. And I saw a lot of parallels between the two fields. One is that when you make a big decision, whether it be in healthcare or whether it be buying a house or selling a house or multifamily home, you want to be informed. And so part of that role of an educator and also taking you through the journey of making the decisions were the parallels I saw in both these fields, and that I thoroughly enjoy doing and helping people meet the goals at hand, whether it be in their healthcare goals or whether it be in their property investment goals. So that's my background, and I actually started to invest about 10 years ago with you, Juan. Actually, and that's how we met. And I started off in the condo world, like you mentioned. And so owning a condo and then selling again after about 5 years, had a small appreciation that was back in Orange County, then bought a condo in downtown Long Beach. And that appreciated very nicely in 7 years. And so that was able to give me enough cash on hand to buy my first investment property, which is a duplex. That'll be closing this week.
And tell us about your upbringing. Where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to high school? Where'd you go to college? And any sports that you're into?
Way back when.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm actually born and raised in Long Beach. And so I love this city. I've planned to stay in this city. And I went to Long Beach Jordan High School and also Cal State Long Beach. And so very much grew up here and been a Long Beach resident through and through. Sports wise, I mean, I used to play tennis. I used to be on the tennis team in high school. But right now, I don't think I can call myself an athlete. And so,
what do you do for fun?
I have a dog. His name is Teddy. He's a pit bull. And so we hang out often. I like to take Teddy into different parks around Long Beach and explore different neighborhoods. And also love dining in not only Long Beach, but in around the cities, of course, of Long Beach too. And so friends and I like to get together, check out new restaurants and the new eats in the area. And yeah.
I love it. Yeah. And people listening are going to want to get a hold of you. I hope you inspire people to start their investment journey. I hope you inspire male, female, anyone to say, "Hey, I heard you on the podcast and I want to do the same thing." What would be the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Yes, they could email me at ann@sageregroup.com. You can call me. It's my number is 562-294-0784. And either way, I am here to help and would love to just be part of a journey that for new investors who are looking for a duplex or a triplex.
Awesome. And I'm going to give you the final word. Any last thing that you want to let our listeners know?
If you can afford a single family home today, you can afford a duplex. And it is not, the difference is not as vast as you would imagine, because the average price for a duplex, triplex, and single family home is $1 million in Long Beach. And so if you're looking to have a new home, I would consider a duplex and triplex, as you have a bigger return.
And you're doing that now. So, I mean, you're someone who believes in that. So there you have it, folks. Ante, make sure you follow her, give her a call, send her an email, and send in your messages or your comments and questions below. Thank you.